And we're live from Stockholm, Sweden, and we're gearing up for tomorrow's match against the Norway Gnomes. And I don't feel that it's very fair. Gnomes are very tiny and small, while we have a battleship, which is freaking huge. So today we're gonna learn how to crush gnomes. So we can have a look at the lineup for tomorrow, and you can see that we have a strong lineup with Bassem Mamin, Africa's strongest player from Egypt, and Nikita Meshkov from Latvia, a famous name within the Riga Magicians for those Riga Magicians fans. Emanuel Berg, well-known player in Sweden and previous Swedish champion, and the current Swedish champion Erik Blomqvist. While the Norway Gnomes have Jon Ludvig Hammer, Frode Urkedal, Hans Niemann, and Tor Fredrik Kassen. And we're gonna have a look at two games that were played in the Rilton Cup here in Sweden. One between the board number 2s for both teams, Nikita Meshkovs and Frode Urkedal, and one game between Erik Blomqvist and Tor Fredrik Kassen. So much to look forward to. So let's start with the first game. So we're starting with Frode Urkedal playing white against Nikita Meshkovs. And this game started out with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, and b6. So this is a Queen's Indian, and Frode Urkedal chose very like the main continuation, I would say. g3, bishop b7, bishop g2, bishop b4 check. Not always you put in this check, but sometimes the idea is to put this bishop on d2, and perhaps it's worse to get to place the bishop on b2 because you want to on d2 because you want to place it on d2. So I believe there's a variation where you go back here to e7, but Nikita chose to take on d2. Queen takes, castling, knight e4, taking control over this square, making sure that white doesn't have time to play something like queen c2 or queen d3, preventing black from putting a piece on this square. And you want to put a piece here usually because you want to prevent white from playing e4. So knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and this bishop is a bit hard to push away without trading the bishops on g2. Castling, f5, enforcing this square even more. Rook a d1, perhaps preparing some kind of break here in the center, or overprotecting this pawn. And then queen f6, knight e1, offering the trades of bishop, and bishop takes, and nice. And Urkedal went for this, I would say, quite calm variation. I don't think white has gotten much here. I think black is completely fine. What I believe you're playing on is, trying to utilize your that you have more terrain in the center. Perhaps also, it could be breaking with the d5, getting this d file open with for your major pieces. And of course, in some situations, this knight can come into play to either f4 and sometimes even e3. But let's see how it went. So we went d6, giving another square for this knight, because if knight c6, perhaps there was d5. Looks a bit annoying. d6, now it's hard for white to force open the d file, because d5 can always be met by e5. So rook fe1, knight d7, e4, playing for this break. But what you might get is an attack like this pawn is weak because the pawn is no longer on d7 if in case of a trade, but you open up black's f-file as well. So let's see what Nikita chose to do. So he took, and then he played e5, getting rid of this weakness directly. So if he takes, then you can take back with the knight, which is starting to look very scary for white, with the threat of knight f3 with a double attack on the king and queen. So I don't think Urkedal went for that. So instead he went for rook d1, queen f7. Perhaps eyeing for the pawn on c4. b3, rook a e8, and forcing the pawn on e5, and also bringing the rook that was doing nothing into the game. f4, now probably forcing black to do something about this e-pawn. He needs to resolve this, because the e-pawn is now coming under heavy fire. So he chose knight f6, attacking the rook, gaining some tempo here. Rook f4 e2, and then e takes d4, and white took back. So that feels like an okay exchange, I would say, for black, because now white has also weakened his king, and yeah, black has these quite solid pawns. If perhaps white could find some way of perhaps playing f5 and knight f4 and knight d6, white might have something. Let's see if what Nikita chose. So he took on e2, took on then played a5. Then queen d3. That was a little bit mysterious to me. Why do you play queen d3? I was wondering what happens on this. So I guess you will try to attack the pawn somehow. Perhaps knight h5, but because you're preventing knight f4. But what happens on g4? If you have to go back and you have to play this position, it's starting to look a bit sad. So I don't know. What is it? This move perhaps going here? Yeah, you're giving up the e5 square. That's probably what's going on. So instead he went for queen d3, queen h5, rook e7, attacking this pawn, putting the rook on a very active square. Rook f7, protecting the pawn and also offering the exchange, which I think would benefit black, since this rook is much more active than this rook. And of course the knight is preventing the check on e8. So I took, king took, and knight h4, trying to find a way to perhaps activating this knight to different squares. Via f3, perhaps even knight f5 is an idea, but I'm not sure where you're going in the next move. So queen c5 check, king g2, queen c6, knight f3, and then h6, preventing the knight from ever getting to g5. And you also have gotten this pin now that white needs to solve somehow. It costs a move probably. h3, preventing knight g4, and then a4, which was a move that I liked a lot because it's trying to attack this pawn chain, and it forces white to make a choice, because maybe you don't want to allow something like a3, where this pawn could get very dangerous if you manage to get your queen to b2. So I think that's the reason why white took this pawn. But taking this pawn comes with a huge disadvantage of weakening both of these pawns. Black took back and now has probably a better position. because of these weak white pawns. Queen b3, offering the exchange of queens, and black would be happy to exchange queens, but not on b3, because if you take on b3, then a takes b3 and the white pawns are connected again, and the pawn structure is much better. So instead, Nikita played queen e8, queen d3, and offering the exchange of queens on e4 instead, which would mean that these white pawns will continue to be weak. And Urkedal took the exchange of queens, and now I think Nikita played very well in this position. So white started with a3, perhaps there was some kind of attack on that one, and then Nikita forced this pawn to be stuck on c4 and also took away the square d4 for the white knight. So you can perhaps start moving your king up the board. So g4, king e3. The idea is to play d5, creating a passed pawn here. One thing to mention for those who don't know, there is a general rule that says that knight endgames like these ones should be treated like pawn endgames. So this is like the same ideas, but with the extra flair of the knights. King f1, trying to get this king into the center, trying to prevent this pawn from going too much forward and perhaps also backing up the pawn on c4. Knight c3, very nice move, I think, because it continues to keep this king away, preventing it from taking the fastest route into the position. Knight d2, and then d5. And now white, I think, is always threatening to take this one. I don't think you want to play d4 because then your king can't get into the game. So I think the main idea is to take this pawn, not to play d4. King f2, and then exactly. Pawn takes c4, knight takes c4, b5, threatening the knight. Knight goes back, and then the king is getting closer and closer to the white position. Queen e3, knight d1, check, king e2, knight b2, h4, knight c4, threatening the exchange of knights and also threatening the pawn on h3. And these knights are now dancing a little bit. Knight b1 getting out of the threat of exchange and also protecting the pawn on a3. King d4, h5, knight d6, trying perhaps to get to some squares here. Also perhaps, of course, knight e4 threatening the exchange on c3. And yeah, might be preventing these pawns as well from going any further. g5, giving up this very nice square on f5 for the knight. Knight e4, h6, pawn takes. And now there is also this idea of attacking this pawn with knight f6. King d1, king d3, forcing the king back even more, and now this knight is completely trapped. A very nice idea also with knight e4. The white knight cannot go anywhere because of the pawn. It cannot go to a3. So white actually played a4, giving up the pawn. B takes a4, and then f5, trying to push the pawn. But there was knight f6, king c1, and knight takes h5, king b2, knight f3, king a3, and h5. And Urkedal resigned. And that's how you crush a gnome, everyone. Well done, Nikita. We want more of that tomorrow. Very nice. Let's see if I can bring up the other game as well. Where did I put it? I put it here. Yes, and that looks fine. So once again, the Wasabi is playing black, Erik Blomqvist, and the Gnome gets white, but that does not seem to help. So d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop b4, the Bogo Indian. I was actually playing against Erik in the Rilton Cup Blitz, the Rilton Blitz, and he played the Bogo Indian against me as well. He won that game, but I had a very good position. But I'm not mad. Castling. a3, bishop e7, e4, d6. So this, I kind of like what white has gotten here, with a lot of terrain in the center. Let's see how Blomqvist handles this. So this looks like you're moving the same pieces a lot of times. Don't play this as at home, kids. This is not following the standard rules of how to play in the opening. Oh well. b4. White takes even more terrain. e5, d5, a5. Finally, there are some like tries at least to get some space. Bishop d2 and then c5. Here it comes. Black has played a lot of attacking or like pawn moves to try to attack white's pawn structure. b5. Now it's starting to look like the whole queen side is closed off. Probably we will see some action on the king side. Knight f6, queen c2, e6, castle queenside. Seems very reasonable in this position because there is no pawn break to open up the queenside. So putting your queen here gives you the opportunity to try to march all of your pawns on the king side forward without endangering your king. Knight h5. Perhaps trying to play f5. e3, f5, exactly. Knight e1. Threatening the knight on h5. Maybe we'll put the knight on d3. Could be a good square. Knight d3, f4. Trying to break up the position for this bishop on the long diagonal. So knight g7. And protecting the pawn, but also not standing in the way of the bishop. Making sure that it can, in different ways, come into the game. Because it's currently trapped behind this pawn chain, so you probably don't want to be stuck sitting with this dark square bishop. And how did it continue? So f3. I'm not sure. Was that the move? Maybe he wants to take with the pawn, but I thought you no. All right. If you don't take with the pawn, there might be knight f5 and then knight d4. That looks very annoying for white. Something you don't want to allow. F takes e4, f takes e4. Exactly. Preventing the knight from f5. Knight d7, bringing in the other knight into the game. Knight f1. I believe there's a square here, and maybe there are some ideas of going to h6 in the end. Or could there also be something with g2? We will see. Knight g5, check. King b1, knight f6, bishop f3, bishop h3. So at least it feels like black, even though black has a terrain disadvantage, has managed to find some squares for all of these pieces, where they actually are not hindering any of the major pieces. So that was impressive. Queen e2. Let's see. Perhaps protecting the pieces here, consolidating, and also preventing knight g4. Queen d7. Perhaps threatening to play knight g4 again. knight d3, knight g4, bishop g2, threatening to take the bishop. And of course the knight is covering e3 in case of taking on g2. But still, I kind of like black here, because you can probably find a good square for this one. So let's see what black played. Black played knight f2, threatening the rook. And the rook and the knight. Look. So I guess the idea is that if you take this knight, you can take on g2. Which looks kind of good, because it seems you're winning an exchange here. This was a very tricky move. So instead, white took on h3, and then Eric took back with the queen, because the queen was threatened. So that seemed like a sound choice. Queen, knight takes f2, and now queen g2, threatening the knight on f2. And then there was this amazing move, where like very unintuitive, rook g1. So the rook was actually protected on h1, but now you decided to put it on an unprotected square. And there is a trick here, that if black takes this one, there is knight h3, queen h1 is the only square, I think, where you don't get taken. And then you can take this bishop on g5, and then the queen is trapped. So it has a hard time finding a way out. I think if you try to go here and queen f2, I think you can play the knight back to h3, and then you can play something like knight e3. Oh no, then it's hanging. Is it knight e2 then? Yes, exactly. And you also need to cover f3, of course. Yeah, so that was a very neat trick, but black could still take the knight here. Yeah, so this was very important, because it actually would have been a piece sacrifice if you couldn't take the knight back. Yeah, and then they exchanged queens as well, and black found some solid play here. Rook f3, bishop c1, exchanging this quite poor bishop. But of course, there's a pawn hanging on a3, and Erik is definitely a guy who likes taking pawns. He is a materialist, if you say it like that. Knight d2, knight h5, perhaps trying to get this knight to f6. Starting to attack the pawn on e4, maybe then there is some way in also via g4. King b2, knight rook a4. There's a safe square here on b4, far from the knight, the optimal square for not being possible to attack from being attacked by the knight. Rook f2, rook f8, rook takes. King takes. It was probably good to exchange this rook on a8 that wasn't doing much. King b3, check. King c7, and now knight f6, exactly. Bringing the knight into the game. Rook a1, and then a4. I'm not so sure. What was wrong with b6? Maybe you can't ever get out. Maybe that's why you're trying to find some squares here for the rook. King d3, king e7, trying to find some good squares for the king. Rook f1. Perhaps you wanted to start moving your king this way, but it's hard now when the knight is hanging. So knight d7, perhaps threatening knight b6 and putting some more pressure on c4. King c3, knight b6, rook a1, king d7, bringing in this rook, this king, to be able to protect these pawns. rook f1, a3. So now there might be something like knight a3 coming, and if white tries to go for the pawn on h7, he might not be able to block this pawn. So rook a1, threatening the pawn, and now Erik had seen a nice combination that sort of in some way motivates why you could move this pawn forward. Rook takes a3 and then rook takes d2. So the idea if king takes, then there's this fork attacking both the rook and the king. So white instead play rook a7, attacking the pawn, still threatening the rook. Knight takes c4, because of course the threat on b7 was also a threat, double threat on the king and the knight. So knight c4, trying to grab what you can. King takes c4 and king c7. So black has still is a pawn up and has now managed to create this protected pass pawn, and have the king that it could be very active and start attacking the pawn on b5 as well. Well, this rook is attacking on h7, and the black position is very good. Maybe there is even knight d4 threatening. So this is looking very good for black. So this idea with a3 and rook a1 and b2 and then taking on d2 was fantastic by Blomqvist. So let's see what happened. Rook a8, check and putting in this check on c2 first, king d3, and then taking on h2, making sure that this pawn is not protected. So perhaps you can go and grab it with your king. Rook h8, g5, trying to prevent this or put this, bring this pawn forward as much as possible, and preventing white from restraining these two pawns. So you want to create an additional pass pawn on this side. And of course now black is 2 pawns up. So this is looking very nice. King c4, g4, rook g8, king b6, rook d8, threatening the pawn on d6. I guess if you try to take this pawn, let's see, what would have been the best move? Check, not check. Rook b2. We kind of like check. But yeah, I guess Erik had something good in mind. Rook d2 check, king d3, and rook a2. Rook takes d6, king b. So by taking this pawn instead of this pawn, white created a pass pawn of his own on d5, and maybe perhaps threatens to take the e5 pawn as well. But I think Erik managed to solve this very neatly. Rook d7, threatening a lot of pawns. c4 check, king e3, rook a3 check, king e2. Now the king is forced to go back, no longer holding the e4 square. Oh, sorry. Rook a3, and king c5, looking to go to d4. Rook b7, king d4, now also threatening to, of course, push the king even further back. d6, rook a2, king f1, king takes e4. So now black has 2 pawns up again. And yeah, white still has this one, but it's hard to see how black will manage to force this one to promote. White will force this one to promote when black can put his rook behind the pawn. So king e1, king e3, rook a7, rook d3, very solid, king f1, and c3, rook c7, and king d2, threatening to just promote the pawn. And white has no way of threatening of any promotion of this pawn. So white resigned. So that was great by Erik, like winning that pawn and then finding that way in the very close structure of of getting an advantage with an active king and weak white pawns and an active rook. So well done, Erik. You showed the way. And that is how you crush gnomes. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, tune in tomorrow for the Pro Chess League premiere for the Wasabis at 6:30 CET. And don't forget the live event at Time Hotel for those in Stockholm. Free for anyone to attend. It will be great. So I hope I see you there, because I will be commentating live with the legend, Grandmaster Pia Kramling, 2 times woman European champion at least, and yeah, a lot of merits. So look forward to that, and I hope I see you tomorrow. Thank you for watching.